January 27th, Leningrad Victory Day. The 82nd anniversary of the complete liberation of Leningrad from the Nazi siege. Almost a century. In our fast-paced times, it may seem like an eternity has passed, but there are things that time can neither erase nor justify. There are wounds that never heal. There is a truth in history that people must know and pass on from generation to generation. Genocide. For many years we have spoken of the tragedy of Leningrad, the great act of heroism of its residents, and the terrible price the city paid. But the truth of history demands that these crimes be called their proper names. In October 2022, the St. Petersburg City Court delivered the final legal conclusion. Nazis' atrocities have received their true name: genocide. We know the enemy's plans were clear. Hitler and his henchmen made no secret of them. Leningrad was to disappear, be wiped off the face of the earth. The court confirmed that the enemy's goal was not occupation, it was extermination. Starvation, endless shelling and bombing. All of this was planned extermination of the inhabitants of the city on the Neva. The victims of this genocide amounted to almost 1,100,000 people. The figure, announced in court, is 1.5 times higher than the previously reported 600,000. The court also acknowledged the delayed effects of the blockade, the echo of the famine that killed the survivors and crippled their descendants for years. It was a crime against humanity, against the entire multinational Soviet people. But every crime must not only be given its name. The names of the perpetrators must be announced, those responsible for the genocide. And this is another truth that must be told to the end. They are guilty of the siege. We're used to saying German fascist invaders, but the real truth is that the siege ring around Leningrad wasn't created solely by the German fascists. Along with Wehrmacht, soldiers and officers from half of Europe bear responsibility for the genocide of Leningraders. In the north, the city was strangled by the Finnish army, according to various estimates between 500 to 600,000 people. The same number as Napoleon brought to Russia more than 100 years earlier. 45,000 Spaniards of the Blue Division, 2,000 soldiers of the Norwegian Legion. It was the Spaniards and Scandinavians who in the winter of 1943 fought the defenders of Leningrad who attempted to break the siege. They are responsible for the fact that the blockade lasted another year. The Netherlands and the Flanders Volunteer Legions, more than 4,000 men. Volunteers from Denmark and Mussolini's sailors who fought on Lake Ladoga, Czechs, Austrians, Latvians and Poles. The siege is a crime with no statute of limitations. Everyone who came to Leningrad bears responsibility for it. Death camps. Irrefutable proof of the genocide was also what was happening behind the front lines in the occupied territories. Gatchina, Pushkin, Krasное Selo, dozens of death camps. In the north, a whole network of Finnish concentration camps. Gatchina's Gulag 154 operated for 3 years, and nearby in Viritsa, the Nazis established a so-called orphanage, No, not an orphanage, a blood factory. Children captured by the Nazis, taken from their parents, were drained of their blood for wounded Wehrmacht soldiers. They took as much as they could to the last drop until death. 35 camps were established in Krasное Selo. Thousands were tortured indiscriminately, whether soldiers or civilians. In 2009, a monument was erected here, a figure of a tortured teenager and an inscription, "Don't forget us." Connection of generations. A year ago, the entire country celebrated the 80th anniversary of the Great Victory. And the anniversary year began in the hero city of Leningrad, rightfully so. The Russian president presented the first anniversary medals to Leningrad veterans, those who defended Leningrad, fought at Kursk, liberated Crimea and Ukraine, and reached Germany stood on stage. Vladimir Putin said that for our entire country, the Leningrad victory would forever remain a triumph of life, courage, and spiritual strength of our people. Heroes of various nations. Who were they, the defenders of Leningrad? Of course, first and foremost, its residents, those who joined the army and the people's militia. But in the trenches of Pulkovo Heights and on the Nevsky Petachok, no one asked about nationality. The entire vast country fought for Leningrad. Russians and Belarusians, Ukrainians and Azerbaijanis, Kazakhs and Georgians, Uzbeks, Tajiks, Kyrgyz, the list goes on and on. Shoulder to shoulder, they stood to meet the enemy, shared the same bread, and went on the attack together. Nearly 1 million sons and daughters of various peoples of the Soviet Union lay buried in this soil, having given their lives for the city on the Neva. On the alley of memory at Piskarevskoye Cemetery, flowers from fellow countrymen from all over Russia are always laid at the memorial plaques on Leningrad Victory Day. Here, among the mass graves, one understands especially keenly: victory, like our motherland, is always one for all, common, indivisible. Memorial on Pulkovo Heights. This siege is both the most tragic and the most heroic page in the history of the Great Patriotic War. The Battle of Leningrad is the longest battle. Huge number of people, a vast territory, 6 fronts. Every battle has its sacred special places. The Leningrad battle has one such place, the Pulkovo Heights. In September 1941, the People's Militia and the Red Army stopped the Nazis from advancing on the city. They stood firm and held the line throughout the 3 years of the siege. In January 1944, it was from here that the offensive began, which ended with the liberation of Leningrad from the siege. A year ago, in January 2025, at the initiative of the veterans, a project that will forever change the landscape of Pulkovo Heights was presented to the President of Russia. A memorial to the Battle of Leningrad will be created here. A 40-meter granite obelisk will rise at the unmarked height. Inside it is a beam of light piercing the sky, like an eternal candle, visible even from airplanes. This will be the first monument dedicated to all the participants of the Battle of Leningrad. New exhibition, Leningrad 1942. But there are places in our city where memory is especially hard. Moscow Victory Park. Today trees rustle and children play here, but the ground beneath their feet holds a terrible secret. These days, a new exhibition of the Memorial Museum of the Defense and Siege of Leningrad called Leningrad 1942, is opening in the main pavilion of the park. It is dedicated to the most terrible winter of the siege and the history of the brick factory that operated on the site of today's park. Hunger, constant air raids and shelling, and unbearable cold took a huge toll. The ground froze and there was no strength or possibility to bury the dead. On March 7, 1942, the Leningrad City Executive Committee decided to organize at the factory the cremation of the remains of Leningraders and soldiers who died at the front. This was the only way to save Leningrad from the threat of severe epidemics. The clay wagons began carrying the bodies of the city's residents. Nearly 130,000 people found their final resting place here. The new museum will tell the story of this place, and the fragmented information about the siege burials collected so far will be compiled into a single database. Daily act of valor. Every day of life in besieged Leningrad was a heroic achievement. Ordinary, everyday tasks required incredible effort. The siege is a story of unimaginable resilience and fortitude. Every day, Leningraders saw death all around them, lost loved ones, but they never lost their dignity or faith in victory. They devoted their last strength to helping others, to helping their city. Just think about it. Every day of the siege, hundreds and thousands of Leningraders came to donate their blood for the wounded. In the first year and a half, hundreds of thousands city residents became donors. Leningrad's act of heroism has a million faces. It's not just the soldiers who fought to the death for every inch of land. Victory wasn't forged solely at the front. It was created by doctors and nurses who continued to work under the explosions and bombs and shells. Teachers who taught children to write and read in freezing classrooms, giving them faith in the future when it seemed there was no future. The legendary blind listeners, the blind defenders of Leningrad skies. People deprived of sight but possessing a unique sense of hearing listened to the sky, warning the city of air raids. The musicians, who literally were revenants, shocked the audience in August 1942 with their performance of the great 7th Symphony by Shostakovich. The Germans who heard that concert later admitted that it was on that day that they realized they would never conquer the city. "82 years have passed, but the Leningrad metronome still resounds in the hearts of every resident of the hero city. We remember the pain, we remember the crimes that have no statute of limitations, and we remember the great strength of spirit that proved stronger than steel or fire, more powerful than death. Everlasting memory to the fallen, glory to the defenders of Leningrad. No one is forgotten and nothing is forgotten."